Good morning. Let's get this weekend off to a good start. It was a late night at Levi's Stadium. It was an eventful week at the 49ers facility. But Trey Lance is now a Cowboy, and guess what happens tonight? Trey Lance's Dallas Cowboys host Jimmy Garoppolo's Las Vegas Raiders. So the NFL scriptwriters are doing a good job this year keeping everybody entertained. Trey Lance is now with Dallas, and Jimmy Garoppolo is with the Raiders. Lance only lasted a little over 5 months longer with the 49ers than Jimmy Garoppolo did. That's one of those mind blowing factoids. There are a lot of them, but ultimately, what happened yesterday, the 49ers trading Trey Lance to Dallas made perfect business sense. The 49ers had to operate based on the realities of the now, not the realities of 2021. They had to own the fact that the Trey Lance situation with them didn't work out, but they did get a relatively good deal considering the circumstances yesterday. And that good deal is going to be very necessary for the 49ers to continue moving forward and building the best roster possible. They did give themselves a chance to get better as a football team yesterday by trading Trey Lance away because of the fourth round pick that they're getting back, but also because of the added financial flexibility. 6+ million saved by the 49ers in cap space for 2023 and 2024, which should give them much more roster flexibility than they currently have. Obviously, they still have to pay Nick Bosa. That negotiation is ongoing, and there's a whole lot of other work the 49ers have to do. So we put together a 53-man roster projection, and we also covered the whole situation in the locker room. I was in there right after the game. Trey Lance's former locker no longer had the nameplate above it. There were some clothes still left in there, but really only 49ers gear. And now that he's a Dallas Cowboy, there was no reason to take that with him. We'll see if we get the Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo picture today of those two guys together, maybe meeting before or after the game when the Raiders and the Cowboys play. But this article from me and Matt Barrows covers everything from Kyle Shanahan's press conference, and I'm going to play a couple clips from that here in a second, to John Lynch's press conference, to me talking to some players, including George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Allen in the 49ers locker room. And obviously, I did take note of the fact that Trey Lance's nameplate was gone. Supposedly, he said bye to everybody a few hours before the 49ers kicked off against the Chargers. The link to this article about Trey Lance's rapid exit and the mood in the locker room and the mood amongst Shanahan and Lynch is linked in the description. And then you can also check out the 53-man roster projection, which obviously features some of this Trey Lance discussion because that directly impacted the 53-man roster discussion. You can check out that link in the description as well. But, as we go through a 49ers 53-man roster projection right now and talk about some of what happened in the game yesterday, we'll inevitably stumble into the Trey Lance discussion because that is such a key part of how the 49ers will construct this football team. By 1 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, they have to cut from 90 to 53. So the 49ers might make all the cuts at once, or we might see a few cuts trickle in before then. Kyle Shanahan speaks at 2 p.m. Pacific time today on Saturday. So we are now in that very busy gap between the final preseason game and roster cut down time. That gives us a lot of pressure to just contextualize everything, pick up the pieces, because there obviously has been a lot happening. The bottom line with the whole Trey Lance situation is the 49ers just didn't have the resources to continue developing him. I think it's as simple as that. Time is a resource. Practice reps are a resource. Trey Lance is quarterback 3. QB3s don't get reps in practice in the NFL. You look for a player who can just go in cold turkey at quarterback 3 in case of an emergency and keep a reasonable floor. Most teams don't have that. The 49ers actually might have it because Brandon Allen is a guy with some QB2 pedigree. 49ers hope that they don't have to find out if they have it because you don't want to get down to quarterback 3. Anyway, Trey Lance was the exact opposite of a player who'd be able to come in without practice and deliver a higher floor at quarterback 3. The problem with Trey Lance that needs to be solved is that his floor is too low. Sure, he might have a high ceiling, but the floor is too low. And the potential answer for raising the floor for Trey Lance is to give him more reps. You're not going to get those reps with the 49ers, who obviously have Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold in front of him. That's already been much discussed, how Sam Darnold beat out Trey Lance for quarterback 2. So resources are scarce. Developing a quarterback 3 was not going to be possible for the 49ers, and they found a good trade offer for Trey Lance, and that's exactly what happened. Let's hear from Kyle Shanahan about all of these dynamics, because he talks about the limited ability to develop Trey Lance, and Kyle Shanahan never talks about money, but he did talk about the salary cap impact here, which I had really hammered home after the 49ers had executed this trade.
For us to do that, with where we're at as a team, how much time we have given them, and the situation here where we gave him every chance to beat out Sam, and it just didn't happen. And when you look at it in that case, there's not much opportunities you can do on that practice field. There's not a developmental league. There's not a whole field on the side where we can get our players just to practice to give him reps. You got to get the 1 ready to go. And when you're not, it's hard enough to get the 2 ready to go. The 3 is usually a guy who never gets a rep till he randomly gets out there, and that wasn't what I felt was right for Trey, and with how much we had done so far, and that wasn't going to be what was right for our team either. I thought it was time to move on for him and for us, and I'm well aware of everything that happened, and yeah, unfortunately it did happen, but I like where our team's at too right now, and I feel very good about that. And I also feel very good that despite all that, you'd love to keep a 3rd guy to develop, especially a guy that you really, really love, and believe that he could do it someday. But to do that for $7 million over 2 years, with places where we are in the cap, when you can't provide those reps and stuff for people, and you got other things with our team, what we're doing, that to me doesn't make much sense for the Niners. I wish it would, because hell yeah, we'd love to just keep them until eventually it works out. But that clock ran out here, and that's why we had to make a real tough decision, one we didn't enjoy doing, one we didn't want to do. But we try to do what we think's best, and this is what we think's best.
The business behind trading Trey Lance and salary cap sustainability for the 49ers. We never hear Kyle Shanahan talk about money, right? We never hear him talk about the details of the salary cap. He usually leaves that for other people, but it's a huge part of the equation here. The 49ers invested so much in Lance just a couple years ago. Dynamics completely changed because of circumstances. You had the injury in 2021. You had another injury in 2022. You had the emergence of Brock Purdy. The 49ers essentially got what they were looking for through the Trey Lance pick in Brock Purdy, a quarterback on a rookie deal who's their guy, who they think they can win with, who was really damn good last night, by the way. Brock Purdy over his 2 drives. I mean, the way that he is in command of this 49ers offense, the way he surveys the field, the confidence that exudes from him, the accuracy of the throws, you can't fault the 49ers for liking Brock Purdy more than Trey Lance. I mean, that's just the natural reality of how this situation has evolved. But they have Purdy now. They still had Lance on the roster as of yesterday, but it didn't make sense to continue carrying Trey Lance on the roster because things changed. Things changed big time since 2021. And, somebody commented on one of the written pieces that I put up on the screen, so you should subscribe to The Athletic and join that comment section. He said that the NFL is a lot of things, but fair and predictable are not 2 of them. Life in the NFL might be unfair for Trey Lance right now and his chances with the 49ers, and that's just how the NFL is. And his tenure with the 49ers definitely wasn't predictable. So people need to get used to that. This is not ring around the rosy, right? This is the National Football League. Life moves fast. It doesn't wait for anybody, even if there are injuries. And, the issue with Jimmy Garoppolo's tenure with the 49ers, the primary reason he's no longer a 49er were injuries. The primary reason that Trey Lance is no longer a 49er, injuries combined with the fact that Brock Purdy had a chance to emerge because of those injuries. So I guess you could always just trace it back to injuries. More thoughts here from Kyle Shanahan. I want to play all of this video before we move on to the other positions, because I think that, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch had some really interesting comments about how they might have handled the Trey Lance situation differently, how it fit into their overarching plan, but then trying to thread that needle became a little too overly ambitious. I do think it was interesting to hear Shanahan and Lynch reflect yesterday. So let's hear from Shanahan about what he might have done differently with Trey Lance over the past 2+ years.
I mean, I always feel like I let Trey down. I mean, I wanted him to come here. I believe in Trey. I believed in him before we took him, and I'm responsible for that. I didn't want to throw him into the heat of battle right away, but I thought he needed to play. So we tried to figure out every way to do that. I mean, if I can look back in hindsight, he broke that finger on a helmet on that 4th preseason game versus the Raiders. I wish I didn't put him in a play that had him break his finger, because I think that really hurt him in his first year. And not only did it hurt him not getting able to mix in much, but it hurt him in the practice time because he had to adjust how he threw and things like that, which I think set him back for his second year. When we went into the second year, we gave him every chance to do it. We were going to make an offense that, to me, gave him the best chance to be successful at that time, which we did do. And when you do that, you hope a guy can stay healthy so he can stay out there long enough. But that didn't last long. It was the first game, and after that, I mean, I always felt for him, and we continue to work with him. But sometimes things just don't work out.
Sometimes things just don't work out. The 49ers did have a concrete plan for Trey Lance. That's one of the biggest misconceptions out there, that they were just winging it. They had a concrete plan. You could disagree with the plan, but they had one. And the plan was to work Trey Lance into the mix gradually in 2021 through specific Lance packages, mixing and matching him with Jimmy Garoppolo. People seem to ignore the fact that they did that. And then in 2022, I mean, he got the opportunity. It's not like Trey Lance didn't have a chance. He got the QB1 opportunity with an offense that was tailored for him in 2022. But in both of those instances, injuries scuttled what the 49ers had prescribed for Trey Lance. And I think maybe a lot of people get confused because the finger injury in 2021 wasn't really publicized until over a year later. But you heard Shanahan say it right there. The finger injury in 2021 prevented Trey Lance from getting the package play that the 49ers had planned for him. They still moved on, despite the fact that 2021 didn't go as they had charted. They still moved on to 2022 with the intention of making Lance the number 1 quarterback. And he started the season as the number 1 quarterback, played the game in Chicago, started the game against Seattle. And it was an offense designed for Trey Lance. In fact, for some reason, Kyle Shanahan got a lot of criticism at the time that he ran an offense that was specifically tailored for Trey Lance. They said, oh, you're running with him too much. Well, if the guy's not a developed passer, what is he supposed to do? If you throw too much with him, then you'll say that Kyle Shanahan wasn't giving Trey Lance the appropriate chance to succeed. He was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. No, he was going to put the round peg into the round hole. Trey Lance, after breaking his finger in 2021, still wasn't a developed enough passer in 2022. So the 49ers ran a lot with him, and they hoped that the roster would elevate him over the course of the season. Would that have worked? We will never know. We'll never know because he got hurt. Unfortunately, shit happens. It's football. There are no bad guys here. Sometimes it doesn't work out. In fact, why don't I put up what I thought was my overarching tweet on this matter yesterday? Why don't I take a screenshot of this, put it up on the screen? Why don't we just read through it? Because I think it's the best summary of what happened. I'm going to select this. I am going to run the screenshot. And I'm going to put this sucker up onto the screen for everybody to see. Okay. Here we are. There are no bad guys in the 49ers Trey Lance saga. San Francisco tried to take a huge swing for the future even while they were contending. It was about rookie deal QB sustainability, and the opportunity organically fell into Brock Purdy's lap instead. Football is chaotic like that. To the 49ers' credit, they put themselves in the shockingly rare position of being able to survive what became, for all of their intents and purposes, a massive draft trade-up whiff. Perhaps the 49ers were too brazenly optimistic about all that would have had to have gone right in their plan to integrate Lance. But the most valuable takeaway here is more zoomed out than that. A good overarching process and roster building system can give a team leeway for those bigger rolls of the dice, since even a bad roll doesn't end up disastrous in the big picture. Inevitably, all discussions of the matter circle back to Purdy. Without his emergence, it's hard to see any of this movement, this trade of Trey Lance to the Cowboys happening. So that's the thing. The 49ers were trying to have their cake and eat it too. They were trying to develop a quarterback for the future while also still being in Super Bowl contention. They're trying to run the two timeline thing that the Warriors tried to run with James Wiseman. That didn't end up working out for the Warriors either. You could see why the 49ers wanted to do this, because they had so many star players. This was because, a product of their own drafting and development, and they were going to have to pay more guys in the future. They're trying to pay another one of them right now, Nick Bosa. It's so many star players that they said, hey, we can't keep on paying $20+ million for a QB. We've got to find a quarterback on a rookie deal. But they also didn't want to waste any prime years of the aforementioned star players. So they tried to run the two timeline thing. They still had Jimmy Garoppolo. They drafted Trey Lance, moldable clay. They're trying to thread a needle. They're trying to walk a tightrope. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Whatever metaphor you want to use, that's what the 49ers were trying to do. And they had a concrete plan to try to be able to do that with Trey Lance, integrate him in 2021, but don't start him because he was way too raw to start alongside Jimmy Garoppolo or ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo. So you have to integrate him alongside Garoppolo. And then they're going to start him in 2022. And it was a big risk. And that's why I said perhaps the 49ers were too brazenly optimistic that this risk would work. But at the same time, I think that the overarching point here and the overarching takeaway should be that the 49ers insulated themselves through good enough roster construction across the board to where they could take a swing, they could miss, and they could still be okay. And that's where they're at right now. They're still okay. Everybody goes, not everybody, but so many people, I feel, vocal people online. I mean, the histrionics are crazy. The sky is falling. The 49ers are going to be terrible. Guys, we've known for quite a long time now that Trey Lance was not the 49ers' preferred quarterback. Yesterday, they just got a little bit richer by trading him away. They have more money and they have more draft picks to be able to try to make the team better now. So it's not like yesterday was any revelatory look into the 49ers process or where they stand as a football team. Yesterday was just the culmination of this entire saga. And the entire saga is highlighted by the fact that the 49ers were in a solid position before they took the big swing on Trey Lance, and they remained in a solid position after they took the big swing and ultimately missed on Trey Lance due to circumstances, due to those injuries, right? So that's the way that this needs to be framed. Anything else is not using the appropriate context. Anything else is just histrionics. It's just yelling. It's just crying about a situation that is already in the past. It's sunk cost fallacy. You do business on the aggregate. You move forward with the knowledge of what's true right now, right? Whatever's true right now is what dictates your decisions in the current moment. And that's what the 49ers had to do yesterday. And they have to acknowledge that sometimes things just don't work out. Anyway, I'm going to put up this 53-man roster because we can transition right into that. Here you go. 49ers 53-man roster outlook. This might not be fully updated with what we put out there in the 53-man charting yesterday. That is in The Athletic, but this is still good enough to set up a good discussion about what happened in this game yesterday and really set the table for Tuesday's cutdown. And the Tuesday's the cutdown deadline. The 49ers can cut players before then, and we might expect a few of those transactions to happen before then. But when we talk about the 53-man roster in the context of the game yesterday, first I have to say perhaps the best 49ers news from this game was that both of their swing tackles or backup tackles, can't really call them swing tackles if they just play on each side respectively. Jalen Moore's on the left side and Matt Pryor's on the right. Both of these guys looked much better, especially Jalen Moore, than they did over the course of the first two games. Matt Pryor had actually been better than Moore over the first two preseason games, especially the second one. Moore really struggled against the Raiders and then against the Broncos. Moore got the start at left tackle yesterday because Trent Williams was off, and Moore was solid. Kicked out well on a run block early on a screen pass. He was also out in front for the 49ers, and he anchored well in pass protection. And, this is in direct response to a challenge from 49ers offensive line coach Chris Foerster earlier in the week. Foerster said that Moore has to be better. I agreed with him. I mean, Moore had really, really struggled for the 49ers, and he was. And, maybe playing for a longer period of time within the context of the 49ers' first-team offensive line really helped him. It does make a difference when you're next to Aaron Banks instead of Nick Zakelj, right, at that left guard spot. It does make a difference when the 49ers' top center is the one shifting the protections, making the calls, and that's Jake Brendel. And Jalen Moore got an extended chance to play with him because I thought that Moore had looked a little bit better with the 49ers' first-team offensive line the week prior, even though he only had a drive with them, than he had looked when he was playing with the twos. So that's an arrow up for the 49ers. They've needed offensive line depth to flex its muscles in a more impressive way. I still think that they might not be done here, though, because you look at the actual depth chart. You have Moore as the direct backup for Trent Williams on the left side. You have the veteran Matt Pryor as the direct backup for Colton McKivitz on the right side. That, folks, is a little bit of roster inefficiency. Normally, you have one swing tackle who can back up both the right and the left tackle, but Matt Pryor is not comfortable as of right now playing on the left side, and Jalen Moore is obviously focusing all his energy on the left side. So if the 49ers go into the regular season tomorrow, if the roster deadline were already past us and they had to field a competitive team for tomorrow, they probably have to carry both of these players on the roster just in case an injury happens on the right or just in case an injury happens to Trent Williams on the left. You need to be insulated at both tackle positions, and if your swing tackle can't play confidently on both sides, well, then you need to carry two instead of just one, and that takes up a roster spot. That comes with an opportunity cost, especially if you're not fully confident in either of these two players. And, I don't think that Jalen Moore is a great player. I don't think that Matt Pryor is a great player. So anyway, if the 49ers are intent on making this team better, I expect them to be scouring the waiver wire and also scouring potential trade opportunities, if any do materialize, to acquire a better swing tackle. An actual swing tackle, somebody that can play on both sides. And that's one thing about this Trey Lance trade and the business behind it. They now have 11 2024 draft picks. So the 49ers have replenished the draft cupboard. And a lot of people said, well, they didn't get immediately better with this trade. It's like, you can't judge a trade based on only the trade data point. You have to judge the trade based on what they do with the capital that they acquire from it, right? So this could be part of a series of moves. And I talk about option power. Well, the 49ers built up quite a bit of option power in the quarterback room to the point where they were able to hold out with Trey Lance on the team until they got an offer that was good enough for them. That's a really good offer from the Cowboys, right? Everybody else is talking about conditional late-round picks and all this crap. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones, who likes making these splashy deals, that's his brand, he sends a fourth rounder to the 49ers. So now the 49ers have 11 picks in the 2024 draft, and they could turn around with that fourth rounder, or they could turn around with another one of their picks now that they're insulated by that fourth rounder, and they can make a serious offer for a swing tackle somewhere else if that possibility arises. So in a way, this Trey Lance trade can make the 49ers better right now, but moves don't often happen at the same exact time. 49ers now enter the deadline with more ammunition to be able to make a potential move. They also have $6 plus million freed up in 2023 and 2024, and that's huge. You even heard Kyle Shanahan talk about that. He never talks about money. They save between $6 and $7 million in the most cap constricted of times in 2023 and 2024. And that also can help the 49ers finish up some of their off-field business. So obviously Nick Bosa still waiting for his new contract, but there's other stuff out there. There's the need to bolster that offensive line, bolster the depth of that offensive line, and we'll see what the 49ers can swing over the next few days. But I will say that Jalen Moore and Matt Pryor definitely looked better yesterday, which is a nice arrow up. You talk about option power at quarterback. Well, that gives you some option power at offensive line. If you're more confident and Moore and Pryor coming out of preseason week 3 than you were before then, well, then you could breathe a little bit easier as you scour the waiver wire, as you consider trade possibilities to bolster this room at the 53-man cut down. Potential problem with this team is slot cornerback. Thought Isaiah Oliver actually made a couple nice plays earlier on, but then he was flagged for the penalty, pass interference or holding a little bit later in the first half. Thought he was indecisive on that one touchdown pass from Max Duggan. I thought he should just charge the quarterback, make the QB make a great play. And instead, Isaiah Oliver got caught in between a rock and a hard place. That was later in the game. But the fact that Isaiah Oliver, who was a free agent pickup of the 49ers this offseason, was still even playing later in the game goes to show you that, he could be a surprise cut. I'm not sure if he will be. I know that Steve Wilkes was talking about him covering tight ends and having Deommodore Lenoir cover slot receivers this year. I think the overarching point here is the 49ers just aren't very comfortable with what they have in the slot right now. Then they can mix and match things to be better there. They could have Isaiah Oliver, who's a bigger body, cover those tight ends, and they could have Deommodore Lenoir slide inside to cover the shiftier slot receivers. But they felt really good about the position when K'Wan Williams was there and healthy. They felt increasingly good about the position last year when Jimmy Ward was learning it over the course of the season. And I think that they're entering a brave new world where they don't have one defined slot man this season. And I'm not really sure what their plans for Isaiah Oliver will be. I know what Steve Wilkes has said, but I also see Oliver struggling out there in some coverage situations. And I'll tell you what, opponents are going to try to wear the 49ers out with the quick game this year, especially after Nick Bosa comes back, especially with Javon Hargrave and Bosa and Armstead and Drake Jackson, who had a really good game yesterday rushing the passer. The 49ers are going to face a whole hell of a lot of quick game. And at slot cornerback, he's maybe your primary second level of defense in the secondary against the quick game. So Isaiah Oliver is either going to have to improve in coverage, or they're going to have to mix and match this perfectly so that he's not covering guys who are too quick for him. And Deommodore Lenoir is going to have to adapt to the slot very, very well, which means that somebody like Ambry Thomas or Samuel Womack is going to have to step up and actually deliver on the outside whenever Lenoir has to slide inside. This is a potential issue for the 49ers. They've got a really strong linebacker core. They've got a really good pass rush. I like a lot of their DBs, but we know how the NFL works. Opposing teams are going to target your weak link. If they sense weakness in that defense, they're going to be able to find it, right? So the 49ers can do whatever they can to conceal it. They can develop players. They can mix and match correctly. That can mitigate the problem, but it still is a potential problem, and it's one that we should keep our eyes on. Speaking of another problem, I think the 49ers have a kicker problem. I mean, they had two. Well, they still have two on their roster. Those two, Jake Moody and Zane Gonzalez, were healthy at one point in time, and now they're both hurt. So do you bring Robbie Gould back? That might be a little drastic still, because the 49ers probably are going to stick with their plan of developing more cost efficiency at kicker. I mean, they did use a third-round draft pick on Jake Moody, but they termed his injury last night after terming it as day-to-day yesterday morning through the PR department. Last night, they were saying it's more of a week-to-week thing. It's a quad strain. And then Zane Gonzalez, the backup kicker, or the one that's competing technically with Jake Moody for the top kicking job, he strained his calf during warmups. So the 49ers had no healthy kickers. This was supposed to be the Zane Gonzalez showcase for a potential trade, and then that didn't happen. So What do the 49ers do now? I think the most likely move for the 49ers isn't Robbie Gould, at least yet. I think they try to bring in a practice squad kicker who they can activate in case Jake Moody is not ready to go for week 1. But you're already playing with fire. I mean, you were playing with fire with a rookie kicker, right? We talked about the risks of that. But Moody was good in training camp, so 49ers were happy there. You're playing with even more fire, though, when you start moving, to practice squad level kickers, if that's what they do, and using that to bridge the gap before Jake Moody returns. So the 49ers are in between a little bit of a rock and a hard place here. I think if you go to a veteran kicker like Robbie Gould, you're committing to him for the season, and you're saying, okay, well, Jake Moody just learned the tricks of the trade behind Robbie Gould. Again, I think though, Jake Moody has done everything he possibly can to impress in practice. What he needs are actual NFL high adrenaline game reps to knock off any of the rust that we saw in weeks 1 or 2. So if you did go to a veteran like Robbie Gould, then all of a sudden you would stall Jake Moody's development as a kicker. Injuries are the worst. Let's just put it that way. Injuries prevented Trey Lance from getting the game reps that he needed with the 49ers. And right now, injuries are preventing Jake Moody from getting game reps that he needs with the 49ers. So it is a tough spot that the 49ers are in, and we'll see how they navigate it moving forward. Back to the 49ers 53-man roster look. I just talked about the slot cornerback position. AJ Parker had a hamstring injury yesterday, so he's no longer an option. That he was a fringe option anyway for the 49ers. Really, for that slot position, the legitimate options are only Deommodore Lenoir and Isaiah Oliver. And I think with the Parker injury, with the fact that on the outside you're not quite sure how you want to rotate this yet either, with Ambry Thomas and Samuel Womack out there. I think you have to carry both of these guys, Lenoir and Oliver, and I do think you have to run the mix and match that Steve Wilks talked about the other day. Linebacker is an interesting battle for the 49ers. Watching the tape yesterday, Jalen Graham and D. Winters are not perfect players. They're rookies who are missing a lot of run fits, who will need development time, but they're so fast, so athletic, and they do have great instincts to the point where, I think teams respect the 49ers outlook on linebackers and their evaluation of linebackers. If you were to waive either Winters or Graham, I think they get scooped up. So I think the 49ers have to carry both of these guys on their 53-man roster, but they also have to carry stability on that roster, and that's Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. Great special teams player, playing a lot with the first team. You can't cut Foles, both for financial reasons. It'd be like $1.25 million in dead money. That would wipe out some of the Lance savings immediately. But Foles is making this football team. The bigger question is, where do the rookies fit in? I think they have to fit in by actually making the team. I think it will be much easier to sneak somebody like Marcelino McCrary-Ball onto the practice squad. As far as the defensive line goes, I might remove T.Y. McGill from this roster projection. I think we did in our one on the Athletic last night as we were negotiating who to take and who not to take. I actually have 54 guys right now in this roster projection. So I'll probably take T.Y. McGill off. I think the 49ers should be able to squeeze him through the practice squad, although he did some good stuff over the course of this preseason. Hyder's definitely making the team. He was all over the place yesterday. He's just a Swiss Army knife the 49ers love to have. I thought Javon Kinlaw had some nice push, especially on that play where Alex Barrett crashed the pocket from the outside. Kinlaw pushed the pocket from the inside. John Lynch was actually on the telecast yesterday. That play made him very happy. There was a play where Kinlaw got erased in the run game, but he got double teamed. I put that more on the linebackers. The young linebackers were in there behind Kinlaw, and the run fits just weren't happening the way the 49ers need them to. So they'll be really happy to have both Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw available for those run fits in week 1 against Pittsburgh, which is going to be a hell of a challenge for this football team. As far as the offensive line goes, big penalty on Nick Zakelj yesterday, negated a nice little Sam Darnold run. I think you could sneak Zakelj into the practice squad. I think they'll be able to sneak Il Manning into the practice squad. It's rather inefficient that you have to take 2 tackles for the backup spots instead of just 1, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers aggressively pursued a move to improve the backup situation along the offensive line. But with some of these young guys, you want to keep them in the building. Same with Leroy Watson, probably the same with Jason Poe. And if you do keep them in the building, then you could continue working on their games over the course of the season, which is what I think a raw player like Nick Zakelj needs most. 49ers have always carried 4 tight ends. I don't see that changing this year. It seems that Cameron Latu hasn't made a big drop now in about a week plus. That's a big arrow up. I think that you are able to sneak Braden Willis onto the practice squad. So look for that. Does Troy Fumagalli sign onto the practice squad? That's a possibility too. So it's one of those situations where Troy Fumagalli is probably ahead of where the rookies are right now, but the rookies are much more likely to get claimed on waivers. So especially somebody like a 3rd-round pick like Cam Latu, he in all likelihood does make the football team. Willis, 7th-round pick, you might be able to get away with waiving him and re-signing him to the practice squad, and you're going to have to make decisions like that within the context of the 53-man roster. I think Ronnie Bell is making the team. Chris Conley got hurt yesterday, a shoulder injury, made that great catch on the dime from Sam Darnold. Tay Martin, Willie Snead, I think they're practice squad candidates, and I think that so is Isaiah Winstead, who's been making some plays. He's the tallest 49ers receiver, and maybe that injury to Chris Conley gives Winstead that practice squad projection, have the practice squad projection highlighted over here on the right. How about the running yesterday from Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason? I know Mason fumbled. He didn't fumble at all last year. Had a little bit of a fumbling issue before pads came on in training camp this year. Pads came on. He was fine up until yesterday. But, boy, Mason was running well. The fumble was the one blemish. He's obviously got to get that cleaned up. I thought Ty Davis Price was running well. I think running back's going to be a straightforward thing for the 49ers. You keep all those guys. Obviously, McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell behind him. Mitchell gets hurt a lot, so you have the insurance with Jordan Mason, who got first look yesterday, and Ty Davis Price. It's a really, really nice-looking room for the 49ers. Sneak Jack Coletto, the backup fullback, onto the practice squad. Let Kyle Juszczyk do his thing, and that room is looking nice for the 49ers. As far as the quarterback room, I mean, if we want to evaluate yesterday's play, Brock Purdy was excellent. Maybe it takes watching Purdy in person to appreciate it, because you get a lot of people just trolling after. It's like, oh, he was throwing only checkdowns. Guys, if the passes that Brock Purdy was making yesterday and the execution that Brock Purdy was attaining yesterday was easy, then Trey Lance would still be a 49er. Point blank. I know the truth hurts, but that is the truth. What Jimmy Garoppolo did to be efficient for the 49ers, what Brock Purdy is doing to be efficient for the 49ers, should not be taken for granted. It's the reason the Raiders are paying $20 million plus to Jimmy Garoppolo despite his injury history. They signed him when his foot was still broken, when he still needed surgery. There's a reason why the 49ers moved off of the massive investment in Trey Lance and went with Brock Purdy instead, and it's because both of those guys have done impressive stuff in the context of the 49ers scheme. And anyone who knows football, who watched what Brock Purdy did yesterday, will know that was high-level quarterbacking. His confidence, his ability to step back in the pocket, survey the field, and execute Kyle Shanahan's scheme. I don't care how long the passes are. The short game is a necessary staple in the NFL. That's not easy. Brock Purdy's ability to execute the way that he did is remarkable. It was remarkable when he was a rookie. It should get even better here in his second year. The key for him is to stay healthy, because he's accurate, he's decisive, he's confident, he sets up yards after the catch. I mean, he had a great play yesterday on a throwaway. There was a screen pass yesterday that Jordan Mason leaked out that was well covered, and Brock Purdy was obviously under duress on the screen, lofted one over everybody, so it was an incomplete pass. No harm, no foul. Sometimes the best plays for a quarterback are the risk aversion plays. The ones that you say, hey, I'm going to live to fight another down. I'm not going to try to force anything. Well, I mean, we saw Trey Lance throw an interception on a screen the week prior against the Denver Broncos. That's low floor stuff. That's the stuff that Kyle Shanahan can't have. Purdy definitely doesn't have a low floor. It's a high floor for Brock Purdy. And I think the ceiling is a lot higher than people give him credit for. You know, he had a 1.55 10-yard split of his 40-yard dash, which is just about as fast as Lamar Jackson's. And that's not just a number. You see it translate onto the field. The touchdown run yesterday from Brock Purdy, he's got elite twitch, elite burst. You might not have elite 40-yard speed. Looks like you tie a trailer onto him. They hitched the trailer on past yard 10, right? But up until yard 10, Brock Purdy has elite quickness. That's what sets him apart, I think, from Jimmy Garoppolo as far as ceiling goes, is his ability to burst out of tough situations. And that touchdown run yesterday offered him the chance to display that elite quickness. So just really, really impressive stuff from Purdy across the board. Thought Sam Darnold was pretty good too. His receivers didn't help him out, right? There was the offensive pass interference against Tame Martin, a drop from Tame Martin, a drop from Jawan Jennings. I didn't like the decision that Darnold made when he was rolling left in the red zone and he tried to force the ball into Cam Latu. Wasn't even third down. That one could have been picked. That was a dangerous throw from Darnold. Probably better to toss that one away or run out of bounds. But he made up for it on the very next play with just a complete dime while he got drilled in the back of the end zone to Willie Snead. Darnold has electric arm talent. That much is undisputable. You saw the go ball to Chris Conley. You saw the go ball a couple weeks ago in Vegas to Ronnie Bell. Sam Darnold has really, really good arm talent. You talk about a former number 3 overall pick. 49ers obviously gave up on Trey Lance yesterday, didn't have room to develop him on the roster. Well, they, in effect, have swapped number 3 overall picks, right? You gain about, $6 million or so by chipping Trey Lance off to the Cowboys, and you pick up a 4th rounder. They're paying Darnold about $4.5 million this year. So it's a swap of number 3 picks, maybe with a little extra money garnered by the 49ers and a number 4 overall pick. And Darnold is better than Lance right now, at least, right? We'll see where Lance goes. 49ers believe that he can continue to develop with the Cowboys. We'll see if they have an opportunity for him because he's going to be a number 3 to begin there as well. But at this current moment, and it was clear during training camp, and it was clear during the preseason games, Darnold is on a level above Trey Lance. That's why the 49ers made him their number 2. So they were able to swap number 3 overall picks. They think that Darnold is going to be good within the context of Shanahan's system. So far, his turnover aversion with the 49ers, which has been notable compared to his earlier career stops, has been a thing. And the 49ers just want that to continue happening. Ironically, they don't want to see Sam Darnold succeed out on the field this year because they don't want Sam Darnold to be on the field. He's going to be the number 2. But history tells us that you need to have a good, steady, higher floor number 2. And the way that Darnold played last night, the way that Darnold played all preseason, I think showcases that that's going to be possible. As far as Brandon Allen goes, obviously nobody liked the first throw. It was an interception. Did he get a chance to do much of anything else? Not really. They were just running the clock out yesterday. But Allen is an essentially known commodity. He's not a great quarterback, but he was good enough to be number 2 in Cincinnati. He was good enough to throw for 371 for the Bengals in a game a couple years ago. He's worked under McVay. He's worked under Zach Allen. He knows the scheme. He's also a higher floor guy than Trey Lance. And given the entire business dynamics of the deal, the fact that you were able to get something back for Trey Lance, the fact you're able to free up cap space by sending him over to the Dallas Cowboys, the quarterback room of Purdy, Darnold, and Allen makes a whole lot of sense for the 49ers. The fact they signed both Darnold and Allen, and the fact that both of them have shown the capability of being sufficient floor guys for the 49ers made Trey Lance expendable. That's just the business truth of the matter. Lance was a project. That's the Cowboys are also in win now mode. Don't get me wrong, but Jerry Jones sometimes likes to make those splashier moves. But the 49ers are in a win now mode where they didn't really have room on this roster for a project. That was just feasibly they couldn't carry Trey Lance, especially since the human aspect of this dictated that they trade Trey Lance. Trey Lance wanted to be traded. He wanted another opportunity elsewhere. So that's why Kyle Shanahan said, hey, if I can, I would love to keep all 4 of these guys in the building, maybe with Allen on the practice squad. But that obviously wasn't possible, and the 49ers were pleasantly surprised with the trade return for Trey Lance. Anyway, let's open this up to a Q&A. How's everybody doing on this morning? I'm obviously tired. Was out at the stadium for a very long time yesterday. 7 p.m. games are a little bit brutal on the coverage schedule, but we can still go this next day and talk about the 49ers after watching the tape. I woke up this morning and I watched the tape, and it was a lot of fun. It was good tape to watch. Charlie Werner played a lot. He's going to make this football team. Alex Barrett, I think he probably destined for the practice squad again, but this guy, he had a really, really good training camp. Samuel Womack made some good plays for the 49ers. Drake Jackson and D. Winters, like both of those young players. All right, I'm checking out some of the comments here. This is a good point from Mark. Bosa might not be on an initial 53 if he doesn't report. That could leave a roster spot open for someone else, and then they could sign Bosa after. I mean, people saying the 49ers need to fire Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are clueless. That's just as simple as I could put it. You judge a broker on the entire investment portfolio. You don't judge him on one of the stocks. If you are so short-sighted and so emotional that you have to judge them on one of the stocks without looking at the overall track record of success, and then also if you're not able to say, hey, who would the 49ers hire that would be better than these two guys, you just don't understand the big picture. And it's not even really worth entertaining that question or entertaining the accusation or the take that they should be fired, because it's not rooted in reality. It's a hot take that is very cold. We'll put it that way. All right, 49ers Q&A is wide open for all of you. They got a fourth for Trey Lance. It is a very good deal for the 49ers. I love it. You repeat David's talking points to sound like the smartest 49ers fan in the room. Just don't be the knee-jerk, emotionally reactive fan, right? We can be intelligent fans. I think that's really important. Take a deep breath, realize that business decisions are business decisions. Sometimes business doesn't work out the way that you want it to, but the goal is to make it work out on the aggregate, make the totality of the moves work out. And so far for the 49ers, they have. How is John Lynch's draft history questionable at best? They've drafted Fred Warner. They've drafted George Kittle. They've drafted Juwan Jennings. They've drafted Brock Purdy. They drafted DJ Jones, who Denver paid $10 million to. I could go on and on and on with the amount of value that the 49ers have found in the draft. And again, show me a team without draft misses, and I'll show you a team that doesn't exist. This is it's a straight cap, right? That's what the kids call it these days. It's a lie. It's just not true. Their draft history is not questionable at best. Their draft history is good at worst. It's not perfect, and nobody's saying that it's perfect. But to say that it's questionable at best just flat out isn't true. There's a reason they have one of the strongest rosters in the NFL, and it's not because their draft history is bad. So put it that way. Yes, every single team has first-round mistakes. Do you know that the hit rate of first-round picks is just about 50%? Not very high. It's like 1 and 2 first-round picks work out. The 49ers have had first-round picks work out. Nick Bosa's worked out. They're trying to re-sign him now because he's worked out so well. Brandon Ayuk looks really nice for a first-round pick. So, guys, just pump the brakes a little bit. They essentially, I mean, it's one of those things where people are such prisoners of the moment. The histrionics, it's just tiresome. Just calm down. Take a deep breath. You don't have to have the hot take on everything. You don't have to be more enraged than the next person on everything. Sit back and realize that the 49ers have it pretty damn good on the aggregate right now. Yeah, if the 49ers fire Kyle Shanahan, Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula, Mike Singletary, Dennis Erickson, or Mike Nolan might be available. It'd be great for the 49ers. Shanahan and Lynch have created an amazing team. The best staff will always find promotions after leaving. Yeah, that's also true. I mean, the rest of the league would very happily trade places with the 49ers. Just think about that. How many teams in the NFL would happily trade places with the 49ers? It's like at least 29 or 30. Most of the damn league would trade places with where the 49ers are right now. And I think outside of quarterback, maybe every single team in the league would happily trade rosters with the 49ers right now. So let that sink in too. The 49ers, when they saw this regime take over, they had such a terrible roster that it was considered the worst in the league. It was completely bare bones. So they've gone from there to here. Everybody wants instant gratification these days. Instant gratification is not how real life works. Instant gratification is something that we've been conditioned to receive on social media, which is why social media and Twitter and YouTube, I think Twitter more than YouTube, are not examples or reflections of real life. So talk to people. I mean, there's so many ridiculous takes out there with the 49ers that just kind of spawn out of nowhere on social media that create an ecosystem of their own. Like the best one yesterday was, Jed York put Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch on notice. And somebody like reading into the press conference saying that John Lynch looked a little sad and fidgety. Guys, I mean, he came up there and he's acknowledging that a big risk the 49ers take didn't work out with Trey Lance. Didn't mean that Jed York put him on notice. Trust me, I've talked to Jed. He's a really reasonable guy about this kind of stuff. He's matured a lot as the 49ers owner over the years. And Jed York is not sitting there yelling at Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch after the game, putting them on notice because they got good value in a trade for Trey Lance. I mean, Jed York has been following this every step of the way, and he understands the dynamics at play. And the 49ers had seen Brock Purdy supersede Trey Lance on the pecking order a long time ago. Anyway, there's just so many short-sighted bad takes, and maybe some of it's just to get clicks, whatever it is. But it just doesn't reflect the reality of the situation. Yes, knee-jerking is not intellectual. It's emotional is what it is. Well, I think Bosa and the 49ers are both negotiating hard. As we can see, every million matters to the 49ers. That was a big part of their rationale behind trading Trey Lance. And Nick Bosa wants all that he can get. And the 49ers want to run as hard of a bargain as they can get. But hey, the deadline is coming soon if they want to have him in there for week 1. So it's like a game of chicken. The two cars are getting closer and closer. Who's going to swerve first? It's the best way to illustrate what's happening there. Tight end projections. I think that we have that right here. Kittle, Werner, Latu, Dwelly, Braden Willis to the practice squad. That's my prediction. I am projecting Bosa to the initial 53, so the roster doesn't change. This projection up here has Bosa on it. The 49ers will carry McLeod on the 53. I don't even think they use an IR spot on him because you only have 8 return from IR designations, so I don't think you want to burn one of them on Ray McLeod, who might be back a couple weeks into the season. Well, the good news for the 49ers is that there are not 3 seconds left in the Super Bowl right now. I'm pretty sure they'll find a kicker before they get to the Super Bowl this year. It's kind of hypothetical. Come on, man. It's not the situation that they're in. You're creating a straw man argument. Yes, I think 6 receivers for the 49ers, as you see here. 6 receivers and 3 on the practice squad, and you activate guys from the practice squad to bridge the gap while Gray and Ray McLeod are out. All right, cool. Good stuff today. Thank you, everybody, for joining the show. We talked about the 49ers running out of resources to develop Trey Lance. Sometimes things don't work out, but you know what has to work out now? 49ers have to cut the roster down to 53. So I'm going to get back to work, do some writing. Make sure you check out the roster projection and make sure you check out our article about the final hours of Trey Lance with the 49ers. That is right here. Boom. Check it out. Trey Lance with the 49ers yesterday. The link to this is in the description. And same goes with the 53-man roster projection for the 49ers, which is right here. Link to that is in the description as well. $2 a month for The Athletic. Well worth your time for a nice 53-man projection and a nice step into the locker room to see what the scene was like last night. Appreciate you all. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and sub to The Athletic. $2 a month. It is worth it. This is the most dramatic twist and turn, the most dramatic set of twists and turns that you see anywhere in the NFL. The 49ers will give it to you every single time. So good stuff. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.